Over to Jyotsna.
Thank you very much, sir. எல்லாருக்கும் நமஸ்காரம். நான் இன்னைக்கு எடுத்துக்கிற போகிற டாபிக், as sir said, was ஆலாபனா as rendered by these 4 artists. இவா 4 பேருமே இவாளோட கச்சேரிகளில் ஒரு வெரைட்டி ஆஃப் ராகாஸ் ப்ரெசென்ட் பண்ணியிருக்கா. ஒரு பெரிய ராகங்கள், ரக்தி ராகங்கள், தேசிய ராகங்கள், ஸ்கேல் பேஸ்ட் ராகங்கள், all find a place in their concerts with regard to ஆலாபனா. இப்போ ஒரு ஆலாபனாவோட அப்ரோச் ஆர் ஸ்டைல் ஸ்டடி பண்ணணுன்னா ஒரு சில ஆஸ்பெக்ட்ஸ் பார்க்கணும். ஆலாபனா எப்படி கமெண்ட்ஸ் பண்ணியிருக்கா, என்ன மாதிரி ஸ்ட்ரக்சர் இருக்குது, வாட் இஸ் தேர் அப்ரோச், இஸ் இட் அ ஸ்டெப் பை ஸ்டெப் அப்ரோச், என்ன காலப்பிரமாணில் பாடியிருக்கார், என்ன மாதிரி சிலபிள்ஸ் யூஸ் பண்ணியிருக்கா, என்ன மாதிரி ஃப்ரேசஸ் பாடியிருக்கா, ஏதாவது ஒரு பர்டிகுலர் ஸ்தாயிக்கு இன்னும் ப்ரிஃபரன்ஸ் கொடுத்துருக்காளா, அண்ட் எப்படி ஆலாபனை கன்க்ளூட் பண்ணியிருக்கா, அண்ட் ஒரு பல்லவிக்கும் ஒரு கிருத்திக்கும் ஆலாபனை பாடுறதுல என்ன வித்தியாசங்கள் இருக்கா இல்லையா, ஆல் தட் கேன் பி அனலைஸ்ட். ஃபார் அ பெட்டர் அண்டர்ஸ்டாண்டிங் ஆஃப் ஆல் தீஸ் ஆஸ்பெக்ட்ஸ், ஐ ஹவ் சோசன் டு டேக் ஒன் ராகம் ஆஸ் ப்ரெசன்டட் பை ஆல் தீஸ் 4 ஆர்டிஸ்ட். நான் எடுத்துகிட்டு இருக்கிற ராகம் இஸ் சங்கராபரணம். சங்கராபரணம் பை இட் செல்ஃப் ஹேஸ் அ வைட் ஸ்கோப் ஃபார் எலாபரேஷன், அண்ட் இவா 4 பேருமே they have sung ஆலாபனா for சங்கராபரணம் for many kritis. I'll start with Ariyakudi being the senior most. Ariyakudi generally presents many short ஆலாபனாஸ் in a concert. இப்போ ஒரு ப்ரீ பல்லவி ஸ்டேஜ் வரைக்கும் பார்த்தோன்னா ஒரு 10-15 கிருத்திஸ் இருந்ததுன்னா 70% of them were preceded by an ஆலாபனா. Though the ஆலாபனா was short in duration, there was an outline elaboration in each region. For example, இப்போ சங்கராபரணம்னு எடுத்துட்டோன்னா ஒரு ப்ரீஃப் இன்ட்ரடக்ஷன், அப்புறம் காந்தாரத்தில் சில ஃப்ரேசஸ், பஞ்சமத்தில் சில ஃப்ரேசஸ், தென் மூவிங் ஆன் டு தாரஸ்தாயி. I'll just play a clip how he introduces Shankarabharanam Ragam. He gives an outline elaboration in each region. Ariyakudi seems to have elaborated more in the Tarasthai than the Mandrasthai. This could have been due to a couple of reasons. ஒன்று, முன்காலத்தில் மைக் இல்லாத டைம், ஆம்ப்ளிஃபிகேஷன் இல்லாத டைம், தாரஸ்தாயில் பாடினா ஒரு பெட்டர் ரீச் டு த ஆடியன்ஸ் இருந்திருக்கலாம். Another reason could be Ariyakudi's voice itself. It probably had better effect in the Tarasthai than in the Mandrasthai. He does, when he summarizes his alapana, he does come down to Madhyasthai and at times touches the swaras of the Mandrasthai. First I'll play an excerpt of the introduction of Shankarabharanam. It is a very brief introduction. என்ன கேரக்டரிஸ்டிக் ஆஃப் சங்கராபரணம் கரெக்டாக இம்மீடியட்டாக முதல்லே கொடுத்துடுறார். ஸோ எடுத்த உடனே ஒரு ப்ரீஃப் picture of the ragam vandirudhu. Next, I'll play a recording of how he elaborates in the Tarasthai. Tarasthayila avaroda phrasing nu pathona ஒரு ascending as well as a descending type of phrasing irukku. That is ஒரு ஆரோகண கிரமத்திலையும் இருக்கு, அவரோகண கிரமத்திலையும் இருக்கு. We'll just hear an excerpt of that. இப்போ இந்த ரெக்கார்டிங்கில் பார்த்த மாதிரி ஒரு பேட்டர்ன் பேஸ்ட் அப்ரோச்சும் அவர் பாடியிருக்காருன்னு தோன்றுறது. காலப்பிரமாணான்னு பார்க்க போனால் அரியக்குடியோட ஆலாபனா வாஸ் மோஸ்ட்லி மத்தியமகாலா பேஸ்ட் அண்ட் ஹீ presented 3-4 மத்தியமகாலாஸ் phrases one after the other. Another point observed is the profusion of plain notes. கமகங்களும் நிறையா யூஸ் பண்ணியிருக்கார். இப்போது ஜாரு, நொக்கு, ஸ்ட்ரெஸ் அதெல்லாமும் நிறையா இருக்குது. பட் there is an abundance of plain notes. Syllablesனு பார்த்தோன்னா Ariyakudi uses a lot of akaram in his alapana. The syllables tadarina adella they are used only very intermittently in between the phrases. I'll play another excerpt where he elaborates on the tarasthai and concludes the alapana touching the mandra panchama. இப்போ ஒரு பல்லவிக்கு ஆலாபனான்னு பார்த்தோன்னா 2 செக்ஷன்ஸாக பாடியிருக்கார். த ஃபர்ஸ்ட் செக்ஷன் இஸ் லாங்கர் இன் டியூரேஷன் அண்ட் சீம்ஸ் லைக் அன் ஆலாபனா இன் ஃபுல். தட் இஸ் எல்லா ஸ்தாயிலையுமே ஃபர்ஸ்ட் செக்ஷன்லேயே எலாபரேட் பண்ணிடுறார். அண்ட் ஹீ கன்க்ளூட்ஸ் இட் ஆன் தாரஸ்தாயி ஷட்ஜம். த செகண்ட் செக்ஷன் இஸ் ஷார்ட்டர் and is sung in the Madhyasthai before he concludes in the Adhara Shadjam. This is immediately followed by Tanam. In the madri or pattern of handling is followed by Semmangudi and MS also while singing Alapana for a Pallavi. To summarize, Ariyakudi's music was characterized by brightness as well as brevity. He chose to present all the characteristic phrases of a raga in a nutshell. Now moving to the next artist, Semmangudi Srinivasa Iyer. We find a difference in approach to Semmangudi's music between his early years and later years. His music seems to have tilted more towards aesthetic appeal in his later years. Avaroda Alapana was a blend of bhava-oriented phrases and intelligent swara patterns. Semmangudi begins an alapana establishing the mandrasthai. A structured approach is seen where the elaboration is done in the regions aesthetically suited for the raga. A point to note in this elaboration is that it is done between 3-4 swaras in that region. Tempo-nu pathona, avaroda alapana is mostly Madhyamakala based, though it swings between Vilamba and Madhyamakala in the initial stages of his alapana. I'll just play an excerpt of his elaboration around the Panchama region. அந்த ரீஜனில் ஒரு 3-4 ஸ்வரம் வச்சுட்டு எப்படி எலாபரேட் பண்ணுறாருன்னு பார்க்கலாம். This is a home recording. K.S. Narayana Swami. pallaviku varumbodhu, Semmangudi seems to reach his peak of creativity and involvement in his alapana. ஒரு array of lengthy madhyamakala phrases, அடுக்கடுக்கா ஒரு ஃப்ரேஸ்க்கு மேலே இன்னொரு ஃப்ரேஸ் கோர்த்து ஒரு பெரிய ஃப்ரேஸாக ப்ரெசென்ட் பண்ணுறார். இந்த மாதிரி ஒரு lengthy phrasing could have possibly been the influence of Semmangudi listening to a lot of Nagaswaram music in his early years. இந்த மத்தியமகால பிரயோகாஸில் ஒரு profuse use of janta ஸ்வரங்களும் we can find. I'll just play an excerpt of these Madhyamakala phrases in the Tarasthai region. The trend of Madhyamakala continues as he concludes the alapana, slowly reducing in pace, coming to Vilambakala, and he ends on the Madhyasthai Shadjam. Semmangudi uses a good mix of akaram, ikaram, mkaram as well as syllables. An interesting point to note is the syllable usage for sustaining a note. Certain types of syllables only are used, either a long ikaram or a same syllable like na used like a pulse repeated many times, or a closed mouth imkaram. This probably could have been for better adherence to Shruti. In the concept of standing in ikaram while sustaining on a note is seen by some earlier musicians in kritis also, irrespective of the sahitya syllable. I'll just play a recording where he sustains on Tarasthai Shadjam in ikaram. Semmangudi's characteristic stamp was singing with a nasal touch. He created a style for himself to suit his voice. இப்போ பல்லவிக்கு ஆலாபனான்னு பார்த்தோன்னா, Semmangudi seems to have followed Ariyakudi in patterning the sections, where the first section is more elaborate, covering all the three sthais, ending on Tarasthai Shadjam, and the second section is shorter in the Madhyasthai region and serves more like a prelude to Thanam. Semmangudi's alapana is marked by aesthetic structuring and an array of lengthy Madhyamakala phrases. The connecting notes between swaras and phrases contribute to a unique continuity and bhava in his music. Now moving on to the female artists of today's discussion. MS Subbulakshmi had her own style of presenting alapana. The structure seems very well thought out and planned and proceeds in a logical manner region by region. Her music is characterized by a profusion of dirghanyasa with perfect adherence to Shruti and Swarasthana in all the three ranges, all the three octaves. Her amazing range in Mandrasthai can be seen in the following clip, where she begins an alapana in Shankarabharanam. Variety of kala pramanas, or vilamba kalam, a somewhat nadu kala pramanam, madhyama kalam, and a very fast madhyama kalam can be seen in her alapana. The madhyama kala phrases are generally arohana avarohana based. There seems to be a preference for elaboration in the tarasthai, where a variety of madhyama kala phrases with different patterns find place. MS's alapana is characterized by use of open and clear akaram. I'll just play a clip of her elaboration in the tarasthai. Regarding the conclusion of the alapana, it is seen that MS finishes many of her alapanas on tarasthai shadjam. In fact, in all the recordings of Shankarabharana alapana that I've heard, around 7 to 8, all alapanas in Shankarabharanam have finished in tarasthai shadjam. A similar tendency is observed with respect to alapanas in other ragas also, like Pantvarali, Dhanyasi, Todi, Saveri, Mukhari, Hemavati, etc. I'll just play an excerpt of her conclusion in Shankarabharanam. The point to notice is that she does not come to even Madhyasthai Shadjam before she concludes the alapana. Regarding alapana for a pallavi, MS seems to have followed Ariyakudi and Semmangudi regarding the structure. The first section is elaborate, covering all the three sthais. Sometimes MS has sung alapanas for pallavi up to 14-15 minutes, only the first section. The second section is shorter in Madhyasthai region, ending on Adhara Shadjam before starting Tanam. In the pattern for pallavi is seen in all Ariyakudi, Semmangudi and MS. A ringing voice with perfect adherence to Shruti, A good range with facility in all the speeds and a methodical planning in approach marks the style of Alapana style of MS Subbulakshmi. Now coming to Brindama's music. It is abundant with aesthetically sensitive and subtle phrases. Her music presented an absolute form of the raga, no more, no less. Brindama's voice quality, Shruti Shuddham, Swarasthana Shuddham, Tristayi range and smooth rendition all made her style very unique. The structuring of the Alapana seems to lay more emphasis in the mandra and madhyasthayis, while just touching upon the swaras of the tarasthayi before coming back to the already established mandrasthayi. This structure somewhat looks like a pyramid, which is wide and strong in the base, tapering at the top. We'll just listen to a clip of how she introduces Shankarabharanam. There is a lot of dirghanyasa seen in her alapanas. In fact, many alapanas begin sustaining on a note. Brindama uses many long drawn phrases which are presented in a mixture of speeds. The tempo of her alapana is relatively madhyamakala based. On the face of it, her music looks very leisurely, but we can find phrases with amazing speed and clarity. I'll just play another clip of Brindama. The use of syllables in her alapana is also to be noted. Brindama uses many syllables which are spaced between the phrases, but it is concealed in the smoothness of rendition. Her music is laden with gamakas. Jaru, Nokku, Kampitam all find place in her alapana. I'll just play the last clip from my side. Brindama's music is distinguished by a majesty in presentation, brevity in handling, and an underlying continuity. To conclude, each one of these artists had their own inimitable style. Their individuality is distinctly seen in the way all four of them have rendered the same raga. though the swaras are the same, there is the feel and the impact is certainly very different in each one of them. This proves that when we listen to these artists, we hear the musician, not just the music. To understand the music of these great veterans and to do justice to a subject like this requires a lot of time. Within the short time available, I have tried to present just a glimpse of their alapana styles. Thank you very much. Namaskaram.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Jyotsna. What I liked about her clippings was she stopped them when you wanted more. And with MS, unfortunately, the tragedy is that MS has been identified with Koreyondrimille, and people think Koreyondrimille is classical music. See, that is unfortunate. MS can sing classical music, this generation probably would not know. So, and of course, there are three segments to this presentation: the Alapana, Neraval, and Kalpanaswaram. So we would invite your observations on the methodology and of these presenters. So adikapram, but just one or two points so that she can. I anticipating from the audience some questions so that she can be prepared. For instance, when she said when I summarize Ariyakudi, brightness, brevity, and nutshell. But all the people who have grey hair here or no hair at all will say that this is only a well-known fact or an oft-repeated fact. Because these are, everybody knows that it's, so let us think of something more. And same thing when she mentioned for Ariyakudi, that when he reaches Tara's thighs, there's brightness, creativity, and he dominates. Well, that same thing applied to Semmangudi, but how are they two different? Okay, they are not, Semmangudi is not imitating Ariyakudi. And then the Dirghanyasa was spoken for both, for Brindama and for MS Subbulakshmi. Because the feeling is different. Okay, then of course one statement about Brindama was her alapana presented absolute form of the raga, no more, no less. What do we mean by that? Because it's a very, very big statement, but what do we mean by that? Then, then finally, she said, we are listening to the musicians, not to the music. I'm very much confused about it, because I always thought Brindama concealed the musician and presented the music, whereas you see more the musician in other artists. Okay, anyway, that's something she has to rejoin. Will come from. Thank you very much.